I'm joined by Rajiv Memani, President Designate CII. Welcome to NDTV Profit, sir. I would like to start with one of the important takeaway from the budget is, of course, the biggest change in the personal income tax. How do you see this change, sir, and how this gonna be, reflect in the consumption?
No, I think it's probably one of the most, at least from what I remember, one of the most significant reliefs that has been given by government, especially to those who are under the new tax regime on the personal tax side. And it's a very significant number. And, everyone has seen the number. It goes up to almost 1,43,000 benefit. So I definitely feel that some of this money is going to flow into consumption. A large part of this money is going to flow into consumption. And hopefully urban consumption, which was lagging, will get a fillip through that.
Definitely, will that get a boost? But at the same time, the FM also announced about the new income tax bill, of course, in line to have a more simplification, direct tax laws. How do you see that? And any surprises there we could expect next week?
No, I think that will be, I don't assume there will be any surprises there. I think that is very focused on simplification, on reducing compliances, on reducing litigation. So I think that is, and she also referred that the number of provisions, sections and everything will almost be half of where the present law is. It will be worded in a much more simpler fashion. So I think all that is positive. I don't see that as it will not have any negative financial impact. And if anything, it will be pushing for more and more simplifications going forward.
All positive, of course, on the taxation front, but capex remains challenging, I guess, for the government also, because we have seen the estimates have been reduced, and then even for FY26, it has been kept moderate. What's your take on that, sir?
Yeah, so I think I agree. I think one of the things which people were anticipating higher growth was on capex. Actual capex spend was close to 10 lakh crore, around 10 lakh crore is what the Honorable Finance Minister announced, and it will increase by roughly 10% this year. That's what they are planning.
Yeah,
I think most people were assuming that the number would be closer to 12 lakh crore.
Okay.
Is my guess. But I think she has kept the capex growth closer to the nominal GDP growth, I guess. I think that's been the broader sort of trajectory. But capex has a very important role to play in the overall GDP growth.
Absolutely.
But my guess is that they have indexed much more on pushing consumption, capacity utilization, private capex coming in because of that. I think that seems to be the direction in which they've gone. And the relief that they have given on the tax side is far greater than what probably anyone imagined, and therefore and they have maintained the fiscal glide path. Yeah. Therefore, the place where they have probably done lesser of is on the capex side. I also think that the government also feels that the amount that they can push through the system is, in terms of approvals and everything else, is probably this is the maximum that they can do. And secondly, they want private sector probably to step in much more significantly than before.
In fact, a lot of emphasis on the private sector investment also. But moving on the custom duties, particularly the rationalization of the tariff, it has been reduced to 7 now from earlier 12 to 13. How this will help, to give a boost to exports and manufacturing, sir?
No, I think the customs thesis is very clear. I think the duty structures on raw materials has generally come down. And on those areas where they want to push manufacturing, the raw material rates have come down, and they have raised the rates on finished goods. So the idea is very clear. They are nudging more and more companies to produce more. And they've identified a specific set of products where they want to push that. So that direction of traffic is very clear. And also there is some focus on trying to do provisional assessments, which were earlier there was no time limit. They put a time limit of 2 years. Also there is some, if there is any identification of any error change and everything, people can file in those changes. So a lot of focus on simplification, reducing the number of tariffs, a lot of focus on simplification, on ensuring that there is more certainty. And third is, much greater focus on manufacturing in India.
Yeah, talking about the manufacturing, sir, I would like to understand, because we're still going through what exactly she meant when she announced a couple of policy there. How this will boost the entire manufacturing, which is being a very crucial area, and we have seen certain decline in that sector.
See, I think they've announced the manufacturing mission, which they will be looking at various issues that through which manufacturing can be encouraged. Obviously, the government doesn't have all the answers today, but they've created a structure through which some of them can be taken up and addressed. Secondly, encouragement has been given to some labor-intensive manufacturing, which I think is the right thing to do, and they've pushed that. They've also, on the MSME side, if you actually see, there is a lot of focus. They've increased the scope of MSME. They've increased the credit guarantee scheme. They've enhanced some clear features for credit on the MSME side. So I think a lot of focus has been on the manufacturing, and I would say ease of doing business has a big role to play in pushing manufacturing. And I think there's been a lot of focus both in the economic survey and in the budget on ease of doing business.
Quickly on the point on the category 1 and category 2, specifically from the infrastructure point of view, how this will help to sort of give a further boost to infrastructure?
So I think sovereign wealth funds had benefit till, and it was lapsing in 2025. I think what they've done very well is instead of increasing it by 1 or 2 years, they've increased it by 5 years. So I think that's very good. So now sovereign wealth funds can take a longer view and know that what the tax position is and the exemptions and the benefits that they enjoy, and look at an investment horizon of 5 years in India, which I think is very good.
Lastly, sir, do you think this budget, going with the speech and all the announcement, you think FM able to sort of balance growth and demand and come out with a proper solution?
I think it's a very good budget. I think she is focused in a very articulate way. She has laid down all the levers of growth. Some of which they have identified, some where they don't have clear answers. They've set up groups and committees to ensure, and hopefully they get done on a timely basis, where they can execute on the action. I think the benefit that she has given to all taxpayers, personal taxpayers who have, that's very significant. Everyone has got benefit, especially those who are in the new scheme. Those who are not in the new scheme haven't got the benefit. So I think that is a big positive. Yes, capex spend, if that would have been higher, but I think they've...
And shouldn't be bothered about the fiscal glide path as much.
No, you have to be bothered about fiscal glide path, but even at 4.5%, the fiscal glide path could have been maintained. They went for 4.4%. They'd earlier promised 4.5%. But I'm sure that I have a feeling that, as the year progresses, if there is more capex to be done, and if the economy is doing well, I'm sure that will happen. And I think they may accelerate more on the disinvestment side also, so we'll see what happens there.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for all your insights on the budget outcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
I'm joined by some leaders of CII here, Mr. Vinayak Chatterjee, Sunil Mathur, and Kunal Bahl. I would like to start with Mr. Chatterjee. One of the biggest announcement of today is the, change in the personal income tax, where we are seeing that, income up to rupees 12 lakh is tax-free. How are you taking this announcement, and you think that this will drive consumption, which have been the concern for the government?
You're actually asking the wrong person, because I am neither a taxation expert nor a consumption expert.
But overall, on the demand side, do you think that this will drive demand?
That's evident from the strategy that is being followed, that even pre-budget, most of the discussions were about how is the government going to increase consumer spend, which rural spends, urban spends, etc., which everybody's been talking about. So it's probably the one measure that the government had on its plate to do that. But if you allow me a moment, I'd like to talk about infrastructure.
Sure. Go on, sir.
The interesting fact that has revealed itself after the budget speech is that after many decades of analyzing union budgets, I now find that this is probably the first year when there is practically a flat allocation for the infrastructure sector. The last year's allocation was 11.1 lakh crores, and this year's allocation is 11.2 lakh crores. So 0% increase. I don't remember a 0% increase in infrastructure across road, rail, and all those sectors, which were gaga sectors for the last 2-3 decades, suddenly down to 0% growth. So it has two serious implications that I would like to offer the viewing public and all analysts. One, has the government changed its economic philosophy clearly from infrastructure as the pump primer of GDP growth to consumption expenditure and private capex now through PPP and other routes to supplement this completely low increase in public outlay? Point number one. Point number two is the stated reason for, in a sense, a flat allocation is that last year's allocation of 11.1 lakh crores is not expected to be even fully spent by 31st March, and we are going to only go around spending 10.2 lakh crores. So a shortfall of 1 lakh crores or 10%. Now that's a very serious issue for the country, that have we now hit a capacity bottleneck on project execution? Because it would be very sad for a country that has been using infrastructure to pump prime the economy, pull people, millions of people out of poverty, give jobs, and have all the kind of multiplier effects from cement to various other multiplier effects, to now suddenly find that I have money, the center cannot spend, the states cannot spend, so I cut the outlay. Now this could take me into a vicious cycle, so I will leave these two propositions for you, which I am currently thinking and grappling with post the budget speech. Saying, number one, is there a change in economic thinking, that some other drivers will drive economic growth? And two, how serious is the nation's capacity for project execution when, as a country striving to come out of the shell, we have the money and we can't spend it? Let me rest my case here.
Maybe, I mean, a couple of announcements regarding infrastructure, asset monetization, etc. Don't you think that would boost infrastructure?
So that's a very subtle underlying theme, that effectively I have listed down 6 initiatives which are subtly expecting private capital to now come in once again. The Urban Challenge Fund asks for PPP. The NABFID is giving credit enhancement for loans taken by private enterprises. The government has set up, the finance minister has asked all infra ministries to create a 3-year PPP roadmap. Then you've got the 10 lakh crore asset monetization fund. Then you've got the sunset clause for sovereign wealth funds and pension funds extended by another 5 years. And finally, very importantly, you've set up a committee to review the functioning of independent regulatory authorities in non-finance areas. Tell me, other than insurance, it is probably only infrastructure which is a non-finance area, independent regulation. So effectively, you are basically asking the regulators to take a look at PPP contracts, the whole structure, to make it far more PPP friendly. So you add up all these 6 measures, and what do you have? You have not a very subtle invitation to say, guys, it's time for PPP to make up the gap that public capital is now vacating.
Clearly, capex is a concern which Mr. Chatterjee is highlighting, that for the next fiscal, we have seen the moderation in the target. For this fiscal, there is a clear shortfall. What's your take, Mr. Mathur, on that?
So I think the government has got multiple challenges that they have to deal with. The first is, of course, the geopolitical situation and geoeconomics. I think they have managed this very well in terms of keeping the economy steady in spite of all the turbulence around us. And I think that they've been able to do pretty well. The second is staying its course, which was an announced course of going down towards the route of Viksit Bharat 2047. And I think the budget shows directionally it is moving in the right direction. The third is exactly what we were just talking about, is how can we speed up to achieve that Viksit Bharat by 2047, and what are the measures that need to be taken for that. In the past, most of the budget announcements were around capital expenditure in infrastructure.
A lot of focus, actually.
A lot of focus was on capex and infrastructure. And I think over a period of time, there was substantial increase in the allocations that happened over the last 3 or 4 years in the area of capex and infrastructure. Yes, as Vinayak says, we would have liked to see a higher one. But then at some point, we began to realize in the last year or two, there has been a slowdown on the consumption side.
Clearly.
And I think this budget has addressed that element of the economy to say, while we continue on the path of capex in infrastructure, we are also ready to give by putting more money in the hands of the individuals to boost infrastructure, to boost consumption, which will then boost demand, which will then boost manufacturing as another lever to grow the economy. So I think it's a question of they've foregone 1 lakh crores as a result of the tax measures that they have taken, It's not a small amount. They've got to balance the books somewhere. The glide path, we are on the fiscal deficit glide path of 4.8, projection to go down to 4.4%. But if you look at it, the other part of it has been very clearly focused around jobs, right? MSMEs finds a clear mention there. Tourism, footwear, leatherware, etc. All of this is about creating jobs. So they're looking at capex, they're looking at consumption, which the capex is more demand side. Consumption, they have now introduced. They're looking at job creation as well. They're also looking at strengthening the core, which is basically looking at innovation, spend in innovation, expansion of the MSMEs, support on social schemes, skill development, etc. Now, trying to balance the books with all these different measures is not an easy task. So while I definitely would have liked more in one or the other area, I think it's a pretty well-balanced budget overall, directionally heading towards Viksit Bharat. Can we speed up? We can always speed up. But I think we're making the right moves. And this budget is the first step in that direction.
A couple of points you highlighted, and one point is interesting, and I would like you to answer, Mr. Bahl, on the social scheme. A lot of focus on the gig workers. Do you think that now the government is recognizing that if they want a growth in a certain range, there has to be focus and measures around the informal sector?
For sure. I think the great thing about the budget, the preceding budgets, is that there is a wide aperture through which the government is looking at the startup ecosystem and its impact on Indian society as well as the Indian economy, and just in general the stature of India on the global stage. I think what they're doing in terms of providing social security to gig workers is one element of that. But in addition to that, if you see what they've done with the extension of the 10,000 crore fund of funds, I think people outside the startup sector don't fully appreciate the impact that 10,000 crore fund of funds has had over the last 10 years. I was in the room when it was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, and at that point the Minister of State for Finance, and everyone rolled their eyes at that point in time. Oh, one more government scheme that will never see the light of day. 10,000 crores going to startups from the government, never going to happen. That's what everyone thought. And I was in the room when it was announced. I can tell you over the last 10 years, this scheme by itself has had a momentous impact on the startup ecosystem, because that 10,000 crores that has gone to Indian AIFs, about 140 Indian AIFs, has enabled them to lever up and raise 91,000 crores. 100% of which has gone into the startup ecosystem. Imagine 91,000 crores that would have likely not, or much of it may not have showed up at the doorsteps of startups, actually went into domestic startups in India. Imagine the amount of employment that has created, the companies it has created, the technologies it has funded, and we have started seeing the impact of that in our daily lives. Now imagine we've done a replenishment of that. So over the next 5-10 years, or whatever period this new 10,000 crores will be focused on, it will have a similar force multiplier.
Clearly.
In addition to that, one of the biggest challenges for startups and MSMEs is the availability of working capital.
We have with us Mr. B. Thiagarajan. Welcome to NDTV Profit, sir. I would like to start with one of the key announcements, which is, of course, the personal income tax regime, and this is one of the biggest announcements so far since '97, and we have now tax-free up to income rupees 12 lakh. How do you see this particular announcement, and do you think that it will sort of help, boosting demand, which has been lagging at least in this fiscal?
Absolutely. I think if one will have to pick the important highlight of this union budget, it is that personal income tax exemption limit going up to 12 lakhs that's an important highlight, because from CII we have been advocating that consumer durables and electronics consumption will have to grow. Penetration levels in quite a few categories are low. If we are increasing the consumption, that is a step towards becoming globally competitive. See, already there is a PLI scheme which is working well, and it is a successful scheme. And this consumption story complements that effort, and it is something very important, wanted, and it was also not expected to this extent. Taking it straight away to 12 is a great step. At the same time, maintaining the fiscal discipline is laudable.
Is important. And what about the capex? We have seen that the estimate have been reduced for the current fiscal year FY25, and for FY26 they kept it very moderated. You think that government is not quite confident about investing in infrastructure and other stuff? I
don't think so. The issue would have been, I'm guessing, there is enough capex that had been sanctioned. Execution may be the focus there, and we have to get the projects executed. Again, 10 lakh crore plus of an investment is significant, even though it is 8% lower than last year. So I will not be worried. But the two other things are important and good. One is the National Manufacturing Mission focused on MSMEs and startups. So that is good. The exports focus is good. That is the need of the hour. And bringing the subject of certain categories like toys, that there is an aspiration we will become the global hub. That is good. And energy security issue, that how we will do this transition in the next 5 years, that nuclear initiative is also good. So while maintaining the fiscal discipline and addressing here and now issues is laudable.
Clearly, to elaborate a bit on the manufacturing side, the budget has announced the manufacturing mission. How you think it's kind of help, boosting the manufacturing sector, which have been seeing some slowdown in this fiscal, and do you think there could be some hope as far as next fiscal is concerned?
No, manufacturing sector, the very first thing is connected with the investment in manufacturing. So manufacturing investments have kick-started. Every sector you are seeing investments going in. The second part is connected with skilling, and that is a mission that is already on. The employment generation was addressed in the last budget. That scheme is an innovative one that is working fine. PLI schemes are there for quite a bit. The component ecosystem was weak. And that has been addressed, specifically electronic components. And certain key sectors which are important, like EV, batteries, including lithium, that has been taken care of.
True.
Now, I am of the view the government can only help kickstart something, and but it is for private sector to go ahead and invest. Further, but the consumption was the concern. But once the consumption thing is resolved, I think it will be. See, I am also coming from the school of thought that at this juncture we have headwinds, which are global in nature.
A lot of uncertainties thanks to US tariff policy change as well. That is also adding to the boost.
Supply chain restrictions, Trump 2.0, there are wars still on. And in this situation, we have to recognize we have to keep doing the right things. I think we will bounce back.
So do you think that budget has done the right thing to sort of balance both consumption and demand and growth?
Absolutely. That the immediate trigger, if you want here and now, it is the income tax limit being raised and the middle class beginning to spend. It's a good thing. that, to that extent, it can happen quickly. The sentiment changes immediately.
Clearly, because the demand, the fiscal stimulus which was needed, the FM has done through the new income tax regime, and from the manufacturing side and infrastructure side, there are a couple of schemes being announced, and now we will see how the detail will pan out. But thank you very much, sir, talking to us.
It was a pleasure interacting with you. Thank you.